I think we're on page Lamed Aleph. What do you think?
I have Lamed Aleph. Let me see.
This, I'm talking about the page now.
Yeah.
Okay, I got a different one. Okay, cool. You have us on page Kof Tes.
Yes,
Okay, maybe we're on page. I have a mark on page Kof Ches.
Yes, no, we're Kof Tes, Yud Ches.
Yud Ches. Yud Ches Kof Tes.
Yes.
Bar Kavonas Gimel Pamim Av. Let me just, okay, just a second. Yisbar Shebeshem Sim Shalom Nimshach Hatipa Lamata B'Yisoda. Let's read that anyway. Let me, if you don't mind.
Please.
Okay, so just to give us a little warm up, and I warn you that I am tired. So we'll go slow. I'm just getting my microphone on here for this great production with thousands. Just think about this. There are millions of angels that are listening to this shiurim. Okay. Yisbar Shebeshem Sim Shalom. Nimshach Hatipa Lamata B'Yisod V'Atam B'Zeh. Now we're talking about really the entire concept, of bringing Zachar v'Nuk together in the Shemona Esrei. That's what he's talking about. And in Sim Shalom is where the ultimate yichud takes place. So he said, "V'achar kach b'birchas Sim Shalom." When we come to the brach of Sim Shalom, here we go. Let me get it back again. Achar kach b'birchas Sim Shalom, misorach Yesod. It causes an arousal in the Yesod. V'az misoreres tipas ha'azroa. So then what happens is that the drop of seed is aroused. Hanimsheches min hamuach lahamshech lamata, which is extended out from the moach. And the idea is that it's going to extend further downwards. This is an extremely precious seed. Drop, he calls it. Because where does it come from? The seed comes from this makif. Now, we've been learning about the makifim, and we learned a lot about that in terms of the Birchas Kohanim. So that is the makiv, which is the mem. I guess he means the makiv, at least at any rate, on the side of chokhmah. So I've already spoken to you, I've told you. Ki tipes azroa. So this drop of seed, he ma'ula ma'od, is extremely precious. And it shines. Its ultimate purpose is to shine. And as it starts going down, in other words, you think of a body, and it has to wind up in the Yesod, and we understand from this why it is that the intercourse between male and female is such a powerful thing, as you see that you're bringing this from a very high place. It goes through the das of Zer Anpin. Hamalubish toch Yesod, the Ima Kanoida, which you understand the Das of Zer Anpin has the Yesod of inside of it, or the Yesod of Ima is inside of the Das of Zer Anpin. The Fishihi Yoredis B'Merutza, and since it's moving really fast, and Nekudas Sion Shalanukva, which is heading towards the Nekudas Sion means the Yesod of the Nukva. So in other words, the arrival of this going through the process of going into Das, and then from Das down into the Yesod of Zer Anpin, and then from the Yesod of Zer Anpin looking for this place which is called Sion, which is the Yesod of the Nukva. L'chein hatipa hazun nimsheches derek tzinor hanizker ad lamata. So it goes through the tzinor, which is what's pshat in tzinor. Tzinor means this channel that limits its surrounding, hanizker ad lamata, until it's digestible for the female. I think that's the idea there. So he says number Yud Bet. Number Yud Bet says in the light print of a Birchos Sim Shalom. When we get to Sim Shalom now. So we have been talking about the process of mating, which has to do with hugging and kissing. This process, as you see that there's an upper, there's a left, he goes a left arm, there's a right arm in terms of the hugging, and then there's a hugging to the body itself. into the middle line. And now it's going to start Gumam Shichim as a tip of the mata, it starts flowing downwards. Because this arouses the Yesod. And understand, he says that the Yesod is the concept of Shalom, peace. Which is going to be Mavur. In the Shafa is it down below, we could talk about it more, but we're not going to. And as a result of this, we are rousing the tipa itself. So in the first three brachos, that what we're doing is we're moving this downwards. We're moving it from the muach of Zer Anpin as we're going down towards the Yesod of Zer Anpin. Then he says, "V'tipa zu animsheches he tipa ma'ula beyosis." So we want to understand the preciousness of this. Ma'ula means a very high level. Because it's coming from the Most High. And so he doesn't say it the way that I wanted it to be said. So he says it more specifically. He says it coming from the makif. Where does the tipa come from? So it comes from Nimshechas Me'or HaMakiv Shel HaChochma Zer Anpin. It's coming from this light of the Makif of the Chochma Zer Anpin. So before I said it was the Mem of the Makif, but it's probably both, the Lamed and the Men, the upper Makif and the lower one. HaNimsa Al Rosha, which are on top of the head of Zer Anpin. So this is what he means to say, is they're coming from another dimension, and it's on top of the head of Zer Anpin. It's extremely powerful. V'shorsho Mechosad Dedas the Atik, their root is really, now this is something we have to go back into Panemius of Panemius. Atik, for our information, Atik is really a little bit unknowable. The first three spheros of Atik, and this is the most Panemius Dika Partsif, are called the Resha Lo Isyuda, the unknowable head. So we really only have the most difficult piece in the Otras Chaim is called Shar Atik, because there you're speculating on what Atik, the gar of what Atik is, first three spheros, could be made of, and it's very, very abstract, and so you have to have an idea about how they're composed, and all of which are composed of nitzutzos, sparks of kedusha, which fell as a result of the mises of the seven malachim. The gar that is rebuilt there is speculative exactly what it's made out of. So let's not, we won't talk about the gar. What's the gar? The gar is either the chabad or the kachab. So whatever, how would we talk about it? But over here we're talking about Atik, the lower part of Atik, which is the zat of Atik. And we see that the zat of Atik is maluvish inside of the, just with the same concept that we have in the Nai of Ima. Well, the zat of Atik is maluvish inside of the head of Eric Anpin. So, which head? Well, just he's going to explain. V'shorshim b'chasadim das. So the root of this in the chasadim of the das of Atik, kamoshi is bor l'kaman b'hem shagadrash. He's going to talk about it more. I could just tell you a few things. The two operant areas that we're dealing with are the chasadim of Atik. They go into the Gugolta of Zer Anpin, and the Gevuras of Atik go into the Muach Stima of Zer Anpin. And even though that the Muach Stima of Zer Anpin is considered to be the Chochma of Zer Anpin, and we understand that Chochma, this is an interesting fact, is that Chochma is on the right side. It represents Chesed and going all the way down, but its root is the Gevura of Atik. So that means that there is inside of that, all of that tremendous power of the right side is a Gevura that is moving it. So it's just a thing that you have to think about what the power of Gevura is and how it works, because that's where it's manifest. Now, where the das of and he says over here, it's the das of the Chasadim are maluvish in the das, the Atek, Kamoshi is bar Lokamani is going to explain it more as we go along. Let's go on anyway. V'od mosif v'rav zal shetipas hazera. So when we're talking about this zera, hazu he ma'ula beyoser. Once again, it says it's tremendously high level. It's tremendously precious and pure. And why is it like that? Because it never becomes more physical. Ava means thick. So it doesn't become more thick as it goes downwards. In other words, it maintains its kedusha, that level of kedusha that it was when it was on top of the head of Zeranpin. V'shelo kavasar kabishar shefa. And so the Tiv writes in here a little something. We want you to understand it's not like all the rest of the shefa hamisava b'yiridasa, which becomes more physical. So here he's saying that this precious seed, which is contained in this drop, which is coming from the makifim into Zeranpin, and we talked about that in terms of the Birchas Kohanim. He says that it remains pure in its pure state, and it does not become more physical as a result of its going into more physical spaces. So that it is that the shining, the ha'ara that comes out of it is the same ha'ara that you had when it was on top of its head, of the head of Zeranpin. It's not diminished. So he said, ha'arasa gedola b'yosef b'sod or shal ma'isa bereshis, and this light is the light of the action of creation, of what is the ma'isa, the actual deed of bereshis, of creation. We're talking about the seed that reproduces, ha'me'ir b'tekilas ha'olam b'tsofa, which is able to shine from the beginning of the world to the next. So we understand the power of this seed. Now let me see how we're doing. We have a couple more. Hatipa. Now we're talking about this pure seed. B'yiridasa overes derek moach hadas shel Zeranpin. So as it goes down, it has to move through the middle line of Zeranpin, which is dominated by das. The das itself is the pool in which all of these things flow. Asher maluvish b'toch Yesod shel ima. And where is this das? I don't like the language of that much. It is that the Yesod of ima is maluvish inside of the das of Zeranpin. Or he means the same name, I'm translating a different way. That this moach, the moach hadas of Zeranpin, is actually carried in the Yesod, that's what he wants to say, is carried in the Yesod of Ima. So in other words, she clothes it. We discussed that before when we talked about the concept of, I keep blanking on this other tzalim. Kamoshi Yadua da Hamochin Shahazer Anpin Mekabel, that the mochin that Zeranpin is able to receive, Heim Shloshim Mochim Chabad. So now he's going over it, and they're in the Nai of Ima, Vehem Boim Meluvashim Toch the Nai of Ima, and they're clothed inside of the Nai of Ima in this concept of the Talmud. Behind the Muach HaChochma the Zah, that is the Muach of Chochma of Zeranpin, Meluvash Toch Netzach the Ima, Muach Bina the Zah, Meluvash Toch Ho the Ima, Ve'umuach Hadas the Zeranpin, Meluvash Toch Yesod the Ima. Okay, keep going on. We have one more. V'kevan shetipa zu yeredes b'mehiro. So this tipa is moving fast. Ad nekudas hatzion shal nekeva, and it moves fast until it reaches this dot of the tzion called of the nekeva, which is her yesod. She malchus, and he says that this place is her malchus, is malchus. In other words, it's heading for malchus, and it's heading particularly in the nekuda of tzion of this malchus. Sheha malchus, the tipa zu yeredes ad lamata, so it's going downwards. And we already said that it doesn't change. It doesn't become more physical as it's going down. It's the pure stuff. So we have to hold it back, though. Here he comes. Kodem shetagia l'malchus, before it gets to malchus. Why would we want to hold it back? Yaavor l'kamon. Now he's going to start going into this now. So the overall idea over here that I'm hearing, this precious das, this precious drop, which is actually coming from the makifim that are on top of the head of Zeranpin in their original pure form. Remember how we went through this and we said that the makifim, there are really four of them. There are four things in the mochin. There are four mochin that become condensed down. But this particular drop that is being carried within it, which is the kernel of everything that we're trying to achieve, never changes. It remains in the power of this makif as it goes through Zeranpin and is heading towards the nukva. here he says that before it gets to that position, though, it has to be held back. Now, I have to figure out why does it need to be held back. So now he says, Yisboyer Kavonas Gimel Pamim Av. The 3 different Avs he wants to say. That's 3 times 72, and this is a big hakdama, really, for me. So he says, why? What's 3 times Av mean? Av is the name of Chochmah, or Eric Anpin. It's the most high places. But it turns out, and he's going to explain this, that you multiply it by 3, it gets to the gematria of 216, which is pronounced in Hebrew. We're going to see it soon. It's pronounced Rayo. So Rayo is the same gematria that's 216 as the word Gevura. So here you have that contradiction again. You have the concept of Av, which either represents Chochmah or Eric Anpin, the highest levels. But on the other hand, if you added together the 3 sides, which we're always talking about the 3 lines, I don't know exactly how this works in the 3, it comes out to the word Gevura. So what we're actually working for is to really sweeten the Gevuros. That's really, you need the Gevuros for the act of creation themselves. So that's why he says that inside of all the many, many things that were manifest is Gevura. Let's see what he says in the as we go on. It says, V'hine kevin shenizboyer, so since it's been explained, shezeh ha'chibuk harishon, that this very first chibuk, the hugging, nimshach min ha'chochmah shebezer anpin, this first hugging is an extension of the Chochmah of Zer Anpin. So understand that this is what he's starting to get at, is inside of the concept of Chochmah is the Gevura of Atik. Kamavur Etzlenu, we'll see more. Be'inyan Eric Anpin, when we talked about Eric Anpin and what is Panimi to Eric Anpin. Shach Gevura de Atik, because the Gevura de Atik, Meluvashas to Chochmah de Eric Anpin, which is the Moach Stima. So in other words, it's there, pumping out energy, whatever that means, into the Muach Stima, and from the Muach Stima, it's everything else, the beard of Eric Anpin comes out of there. So everything comes out of this Muach Stima, even though it's closed up and you can't see it, and it's not findable, and it's ununderstandable, but we know the Rav is telling us that this is a designation of the place where the action is really beginning, the source of the action. What's inside of the source of the action? Gevura. So what are we talking about there? So v'lechein, kol b'chinush shlosha pamim av, all of those, the 3 avs, hem b'gematria gevura. That's why I said before, they come out, if you add it up, they come out to 216. That's the gematria of gevura. The Roma is b'chavaya the av sheb'chochma. So this is to tell you about the chavaya the av, which is in chochma, al gevura the atik haganuza b'socha, which is inside of it. So this is talking about hidden powers, powers that we understand what they are. He's able to designate them, what it actually means, so it's up to us to figure it out. So number Yud Ches, I guess we have to go to the next page. And all of this stuff is big-time stuff, I believe. So he says, Kan, Mavur Harav Zal, Shakal Bechinas Tipa Zu. So again, the Tipa, which we said is pure in its pure state, is a bright, powerful light of creation. Himabechin is a Gevura, but it is a Gevura, because Gevura is, like the Elokims of creation that we had in the Bereshis bara Elokim. Elokim's Lashon Din. So inside of all of this is the creative power, is Gevura, really. Kevin, and you see this also, is that the Rav says, as a psychologist, as the Rav says, that women are Gevura. Don't fight with your wife, because she's made out of fight. That's what they're made out of. But you look at it in the positive sense, they produce children, they produce houses, they produce all kinds of things. And production needs the two, of course, needs male and female. But that's where the Gevura is located, because that's what actually gives birth. That's the part. So I always say that because I'm always thinking about that Garden of Peace book, which I read, and I thought it was real helpful to me. And I realized that rabbi is really following the ARI as he's trying to explain male-female relationships. Shekol b'chinas tipa zuhi b'chinas a gevura. So the drop that we're talking about, ultimately in its panemius, is gevura. Kaven shehi medachila maschila, for that where it begins. The himashek mahachibok harishon. So this, he wants to say that this is what's coming from that first hug. That's the hug of the left hand. The love of the left, once again, is the concept of Gevura. Umechus hachibuk harishon, so that the form of this original chibuk, shenimshach min hachachma de zer anpen, which is coming from the chachma of zer anpen, hu bebechinas Gevura. So even though it's coming from chachma, we're just explaining that inside of chachma is a Gevura. It's interesting. Hu bebechinas Gevura kevan shekol bechinas chachma hi Gevura, because ultimately chachma, again, the contradiction is that it manifests as the right line, which is a line of chesed. He said, but underneath it all, what powers the whole business is Gevura. And I think that in other places, although unsaid, that in male-female relationships of human beings, but really the female is behind everything that's going on, even though that she doesn't see it and it's not manifest, but somehow her direction is in all of that. Incidentally, did you get the book? Did the Rehov Zanahar come to you?
No.
You didn't get it yet?
No.
I didn't open up the box, but when I got here, there was a box. So you should be getting it, and if not, then I'm going to have to find out where it is. So we'll have that coming up, but it's not time for it now. Ultimately, it's a Gevura, commotion Mavur, become a Bekomba Ba'inyan Arich, that we know in regards to Arich, that Muach Stimo has a Gevura behind it. For a Tam Kevin Shach Gevura, the Ating Muluveshes Bachachman Arich, and that's the reason why. Is that the Gevura is inside of Arich. So therefore the Chachma here is called the Gevura. So he goes on to it more in the Shefa. Number Yud Tes. He says, so V'lakach. So therefore, Kol Shlosha Chibukim Shel Gimel Av. So he says these, I think we probably said this before, that there's an Av on the right, there's an Av on the left, and there's a Lav in the middle. But he said, if you remember back to this, he said the one on the right is just a regular Av, Yud Vav Daled Ke Yud Vav Yevod Ke Yud. But the one on the left is going to be a Sag plus 10 letters. That's 73. And the one in the middle is going to be a 45. In other words, it's going to be the gematria of 45, which refers to the middle line, plus 26, which gives you 71, which are more or less 70. But add them all together, you still get 216. So he said, this is how, trying to understand that. Those are the facts. He's talking about higher levels of reality. So anyway, Kol Shlosha Revukim Shel Gimel Av, Heim Gabe Bechinas Gevura, they're all aspects of Gevura. But Davazev Romez Begematria Shel Gevura, so that we understand this coming from the Gematria Gevura, Shehi Shlosha Pamim Av, which represents 3 times Av. Arom is the Chachma Sheyesh B'Chavavaya the Av, which is to tell you that Chachma is an Av, but Kevan Shegavura Da'atim B'Luvesha V'Ganuza B'Chachma Derich, and that whole thing has a Chachma, has a Gevura behind it, and this is what we're understanding. Okay, so now we're in a slightly different place. So it says like this: Yizboer Shahatipa Meschalekes Legim B'Chalokim. Now he had said previously that as it's going down, and it wants to go into Zer Anpen, and it wants to go fast, but it's held up. So he says, why is it held up? And he's coming over here, I think, to help us understand why it's held up. It winds up being divided into 3 different portions. So one of the portions is for the purpose of what we've been talking about, which is to bring the tipo into the Yesod of ZA and deposit it in the Yesod of the Nukva, and that is creation. Number base is Litzorach Zivugim Yosem Ma'ulin. So there's other Zivugim that happen as a result of it too. And number 3, Lahashlim Yud Gimel Tikkun Dikna the ZA. So this is why we're holding it up, because we want to be able to divvy it up into these different places. So this tipa of seed, but he says the word hazroa, of planting. I think maybe you could say like that, the tipa of planting, that you're going to plant. Tischalik l'shlosh halakim. So the tipa itself now has to be divided into 3 portions. So one portion is going to go downwards, L'tzorach zivug Rachel Nukva de ZA, in order to be able to yichud with Rachel, who in this case is Malchus, Nukva de ZA. And the second one is to extend it down from the chesed of Zer Anpin. Is to make another concept of 72 in a different way. L'tzorach chibuk yoser ma'ula min harishon kamasha kasav, as we have written. So in other words, the second one is to make a chibuk, which is a type of a yichud, but in a higher level. So I'm not sure what that means. V'ashlishi hu la'aloisa, the third one is to elevate it. Lamala. So why do you need to elevate it up? We're talking about the seed now, which is located in the Yesod of Ima, which is inside of the das of Zer Anpin. So he says this tipa needs to be deposited into the das of Zer Anpin so that it can move down to the rest of Zer Anpin and create this yichud. But here we're holding it up. So what are we doing? We're elevating it. Lamala, up above the hamshicha al dikna de Zer Anpin, in order to bring it, to pull it, extend it to the dikna of Zer Anpin. And why? So to change Zer Anpin from the 9, which he normally is, now why is this so important that he should, this is the third part that we want to hold it up so that we can get all these actions in order, dikna, that we want to build the dikna of Zer Anpin. So because in the original he was only 9 tikkunim. So let's see number kaf. As we're getting, you see that the plot here is becoming thicker. The plot. So we're on number kaf. Because of the gevura that's inside of chachma, yesh shalosha av. So we understand that gevura itself is the gematria 3 times av. So we defined and we said, what do these avs look like? There's one on the right, one on the left, one in the middle. We defined that a little bit, how they're actually composed. So over here we say that, well, that's what's inside of chachma. So therefore, on the rotin shachatipa shal hazroazu, so we want the tipa to be divided up. So then we want to divide it up into 3 portions. And then we'll bring it into 3 different purposes, in other words, goals. They'll accomplish 3 different things. So apparently he has a build-up over here in the Shefa, which we're not going to look at right now. So let's go to 21. He says, so one of the portions that we're talking about here, Shenimshach Lamata is destined to go straight down. So this, when we say the nekeva of Zer Anpin, the nukdaza, so this is Malchus, also known as Rachel. Nekeva shall Zer Anpin, shayidei kain ya'asa zivu Yaakov in Rachel. So this will cause the yichud. This is the weekday yichud that we're talking about between Yaakov and Rachel. So this particular takes place as we fall on our heads, which is what we call tachnut. Now, it's surprising that he has a different understanding than I may have had about that. Let's go on. Number kaf bet. So now there's going to be a second portion. Hu b'shvil the hamshicha b'chesed Zer Anpin is in order to bring the tipa into the chesed Zer Anpin. La'asos b'mana b'chinas av b'tzura acheres is to make it an av in a different form. Now, what does he mean by that? Amanas la'asos chibuk yoser ma'ulam and arishon. So why do we need to change it so that you have a higher level of chibuk? V'hu aver chazivugim she'asa ka'es, and this is all because of the yichudim that are taking place at this moment. Now, again, it's a little vague. Shehem zun Yisra v'leya b'Yaavor. So this is the yichud of Zun, and here he says that yichud, he's changing. Before he said the lower yichud is Yaakov and Rachel. So now he said, but at the same time, there's another yichud that we want to make. This is the higher level yichud, and this is called the yichud of Yisrael and Leah, and that takes place in the word Yaavor. Yaakov Rachel ben Nefilat Apayim, and then also at the same time you make a yichud again with Yaakov and Rachel when you fall on your face. That's Nefilas Apayim. So going on, that's a part of the Yaavor is the next part after that. So now we're on number Kaf Gimel. So now we have to decide what is the third portion. Na'asa al menas la loso, in order to be able to elevate this tipa, lamala, up above. And what does it do when it gets up above? Lahamshech chelik zeh ala dikna shel zer anpin, to bring this third portion into the dikna of zer anpin. B'hamadra, what's the purpose? Because zeh he b'shvil lahashlim es tikuni dikna, is we also need the zer anpin should turn into the same kind of beard as Eric anpin. And this energy of the tipa, which is being held back here, that third portion of that tipa, is going to go up and going to help promote the fulfillment of the beard of Zer Anpin. Shemitzad Abba yadayim b'shefa. So he has something over there wants to say too. So he said, Kadei sheyeh yelo yud gimel tikkunei dikna, so that we should find that over there are 13 different tikkunim in the dikna. That's what we want for Zer Anpin. And this 1/3 part of this tipa is going upwards to pull down the rest of the shefa that's needed to make Zer Anpin into a 13. Ki ad ato hoyubo rak tesha tikkunim, because he was originally only 9 tikkunim. Now, let's see what he says in the next one. Now we're explaining where this tipa is going. Well, we just talked about it some. So he says, Da ki tipa zu nimshacha b'chesed da'atik. So let's understand that the drop itself originally comes from the chesed of Atik. Where is the chesed of Atik manifest? Or he says maluvish, that it's clothed, which means that's where it's going to be manifest through a garment, which is going to be called toch hakesed de'irich, which means the gugalta de'irich. Misham nimshach lamatik nizgar, and from there. So again, the tipa has an origin in the chesed of Atik, which is that's the highest visible place for us. So hamaluvish toch hakesed de'irich, which is in the gugalta rich, and misham nimshach lamat. So let's look over here at number Kaf Dawid, and the last 2 words in the left column says Kan Mosif. So now he's going to come and he's going to add this. Harav sheyesh ladas, you have to know, shachatipa hanimshechas ba anu oskim ka'e. So this tipa that we've been talking about, this how it's moving, that we're dealing with it now, makor lamala b'chesed da'atik. Understand that it's coming from an extremely penimistic, of the most penimistic place. Sheslavish toch keser shel Eric Anpen. So therefore it's clothed inside of the keser verich. And misham anachnu mamshichin tipa zu lamata, and from that place we're able to pull down this tipa kamavur la'el, as we explained up above. Now let's see. We have. You still okay?
Yeah.
Okay, so let's go take a look at this number on page Lamed Bet. Yizboyer Hatam Lama Ana Omrim Yud Gimel Midas Koden Nefilas Apayim. So let's go back. First, we had the concept of Birchas Kohanim that brought in the Makifim, and they were manifest now there. Now we're going to say that we're going to say Tachnun. So first we're going to say the Vidui, and then after that we're going to say the Yud Gimel Midos, and then after that we're going to fall on our arms. So all of this is really not the way that I might have thought about it. So let's see what he says. So now you're doing Tachnun. Azhu eis nesinis v'horedis hatipa hazu. So this is the time where you see the bringing down of this tipa, mena Yesod el Malchus, from Yesod to Malchus. So therefore, anu makdimim ato. So now what we're doing now is we're going to go to the Yud Gimel Midos Viyaavor. So we're going to say the Yud Gimel Midos of Rachamim, right? So that's really bringing the tipa down. La'akvam kodem shataratz lamata, but hold them back before they start running downwards. So he's saying that this is moving fast. This is moving heated and fast. Once we move it, we stop it. And so we're going to hold it back. Where are we going to hold it back? We're going to hold it back at the chest of Zer Anpin. Kisham nikra ma'aver yabuk. Because why? he says that this is the place. It's a nice little piece here. This is called the Ma'avar Yabok. So Mitzvah Hashem will see that you get over the weekend that this Rechovos Anar is going to come. And we'll be able to, well, we're not going to do that much, but Yabok is a big idea. So in Kabbalah. So we know that we see the Yabok is that the Jews crossed over the river Jordan, or they crossed over a place, or that was, I think it was Yaakov Avinu that he went over he went over the river Yabok. But Yabok is actually a gematria of 112. So this is a big part of the Rishash and other places, and he's bringing it to us right here. Kisham Nikra Ma'avar Yaakov. This is the ford of the river Yabok. She'oivrim Havayos HaMochim, and what's happening here? The Havayos of the Mochin, the Godless, are passing through Toch Elokim the Kadnas Shebegarim. Let's get the words. The Havayos which are coming from the Mochim of the head, they're passing, which are called Mochin the Godless. That's what we want to have come into Zeranpin, which will build him from a 6 kitzvos to 10, and build his beard from a 9 to a 13. So they go into the name Elokim. This is a shiluv of the Mochin, the godless, which are Avayos, into the neck, the Katnas Shebegorim, which is the source of restriction, which is Mochin, the Katnas, which are found in the throat, or in the neck. Ki Havaya ve'Elokim begematria Yaakov. Because if you say like this, you take the Havaya, you put it inside of the Elokim, now you have 26 and 86. Comes to the gematria of 112. So this is the concept here of what are we dealing with? It's really hard to understand because we understand Yabok in a physical sense with Yaakov Avinu. Here he's telling that it's actually something else. It's a bridge, a ford, just like Yaakov Avinu went across that. I think it was Yaakov Avinu. I'm getting mixed up.
Yeah.
So he went, but that's the one where he went back to retrieve.
His little vessels,
and he got into a fight with the Malach of Esav. So exactly what to do with this, I don't know, but what he's saying like this. The Malach of Esav, like Paro, is really the name Orpah, which or Orif, which means the back of the neck. So he says that this place is the place of constriction. So look at it like this. You have the head in Zeranpin, which, let's say, in our sense, is enormous. Because within it, I mean, actually probably very tiny, but in reality, it holds within it all the jewels, because it has the Chabad there. That's what's needed to build up the world. So therefore, it's enormous. But in order to get out of the head into the goof, where it actually could be manifest, it has to go through the neck. The neck is a place of constriction. Constriction is the concept of normality, where human beings are located all the time. And it has to go through that area in order, that is this place of constriction, which is only the 6, which refers to the concept of the 6 kitzvahs of Zeranpin. It has to make it through there in order to be able to build Zeranpin into the complete 10 spheros, or 9, depends on how you count them. Begematria Yavok. And that place where it goes through there is called Yabok. Yabok is the mixture of Avaya Elokim. V'zeh Viyaavor, so this place, which is the bridge, Shal Yud Gimel Midos, of the 13 Midos, Sha'ana Omrim Ato, because now, after the Viduy, we're going to say, and Yaavor, all of these words, we're tracking now that this is going to come down through the neck into the body of Zeranpin through this mixture here place, which is the mixture of Avaya Elokim. Likach es or hamochin, the godless, and so the idea is to bring it through the Yaavor, through the Yabok, and to be able to bring it the godless of these, the mochin of godless, ha'ovrim me'aver Yavok. I don't know how to pronounce that. Ma'avar Yavok, that's what it is. Ma'avar Yavok, that is the ford, which is called Yabok. V'zeh terem, and this has to take place, sheyarda lamata, before it goes down any further. The fish az kevar yatsa min toch hamachitzos the Yesod ZA, because then, at this point, it's already gone out from the midst of the walls of the Yesod of Ima. So then once it gets through the neck, that it comes through the Yesod of Ima, and it extends down from this moach v'yarda ad sham, and it goes all the way down to there. Now, where's the there? Get a little lost there. We'll find it out. V'askavar niglis begilui. So once it reaches the chest of Zeir Anpin, which we said before, we find it now in a revealed state. It's called the gilui. But at this point, we hold the tipa back, sham, in its place over here at the chest of Zeir Anpin, kodem shetered, before it gets into the gilui and it goes into malchus, mischalik the shlosh halakim canal, and that's where it gets divided into the three portions, as we said. So this may be my last one. We're getting a little longer, so let's see where we started. This is a nice piece. We're on number Kaf Hey on page Lamed Bet in the light print, and it says like this: Bisman Nefilat Apayim, at the time of when we fall on our arms. Now there's a machlokes exactly how you do this. I've read several places that the version that, let's see, from our point of view, that the Sfardi and the Ashkenaz and the ARI sitter use a different tachnun than the Ashkenaz and the Hasidim use. In other words, the David Hashem Ori is which one is it? Oh gosh, I don't have my sitter open. Anyway, whatever it is that they say, the Sfardim say, is what the Kabbalists like to use. But the Hasidim and the rest of the Hasidim and the Ashkenaz have a different girsa there. Also, there's a difference in Breslov. People fall on their left arms even when they're wearing tefillin, and this may be correct. At least Rabbi Nachman says it's correct, but everybody else falls on their right arm. So you have some differences in minhagim. So let's go on and say Bisman Nefilat Apayim. So when you actually fall on your arm, Azhu Zaman Nesidis v'Horedis Atipa Aniskeres the Ale. So what's actually happening at that moment is the tipa that we've been talking about, of this makif of Chochmah, which has, he said before, which has its Gevur inside of it. This is the place where it falls down to this place, and this Keres La'el. Yesod shal Yaakov el Malchus, and ultimately it's going to go from the Yesod of Yaakov into Malchus. So he said, V'lakach, anu makdimin lomer achshav. So before, as this is going, first thing we do is we say the 13 midos shal rachamim. And he calls them the 13 midos of Yaavor. So Yaavor Hashem al pana v'yikra, and here we go, we spill them out. So this is the concept of it moving down. Now he said the opposite. He said that through saying these 13, it holds back this drop, kashihi od lamala b'yesod shal ima, while it's up above and it's still in the closed up area called, sometimes they call it the mekulsa, I saw that today, and usually it's called the situm, the closed up area. Shenimsa b'makom achazish Zeir Anpin, which is at the chaz of the Zeir Anpin. In other words, it's still locked up. All the tipa is still inside it. Kolim shetered b'mehiros b'merutza lamata, before it runs downwards. Makom zeh she'anim ma'akvim is a tipa. So this place where we're holding back this drop, shelo sered lamata nikra ma'avar yabok. The place itself, which is now we say is corresponding to the neck, possibly, says that this place before we let it go it's called the Maver Yabok. It's called Yabok. So now, so why is it that the neck, this narrow place, that we hold back the tipa? Now, here's the thing that may need to know, that the normal place of das is an upper das and a lower das. The normal place of das, let's say, is in the neck, and it's between the right brain and the left brain. It's like the medulla oblongata, something like that. It's a lower element, but it's part of the brain. So it's held back there. Now it has an extension, which is called the Ataras Yesod, the crown of the Yesod, that extends further down into the chest of Zeir Anpin. So that's also part of the Yesod. So the Yesod actually goes from the neck down to the chazah, to the chest. So b'shem ma'aver yabok. So that place where it's held back is in the place of the original das, the upper das, and it's called the ma'aver yabok. Kevan shebemakom zeh, because in this place, hu begaron, it's in the neck, it's in the throat. Shebo oivrim shemos havaya, and the names of havaya which we have said before is that these three mochim, all are avayas, they're going to be 72s. He says that they're all held back there. They have to pass through the throat. Shehem nekroim ha-mochin the godless, and these mochim are the mochin of expanded consciousness. These are the mochin of awareness of Hashem. B'soch shemo shel Elokim shel nekroim katas. In the limiting, the concept of gevura is Elokim. So it's the Elokim itself is the constrictor. So now you're bringing the expander into the constrictor. V'al yadei zeh romes yabok, romes Hashem yabok, because yabok is 112, 86 is Elokim, and 26 is Havaya. That makes yabok. Shehu gematria shel kibur zeh. So this is the gematria of this kibur. Shel shem Havaya shehu begematria ko. Im shem Elokim shehu begematria po. And so therefore the two of them together, add them together, what do you get? Sakakol yukuf yud base, which is yabok. V'zeh shem ab yabok. Now the Rishash uses this name in different places, and to be able to figure out this is the background on it could help a lot over there. So Hatam Sha'ana Oimrim Ke'ez Tefilas Viyaavor Shal Yud Gimel Midas. So why are we saying now at this place the Yud Gimel Midas? Hikidei La'atzor. It's to close things up as a tipa, is to keep locked up this kippah, this tipa, Shehachla L'Radas Bebrachas Sim Shalom. So that is really trying to move, going down in the bracha of Sim Shalom, which is where the Yichud take place. Ad Shegir L'Dash Shel Zer Anpin. Now let me read this again because I didn't read it good. So he says, let's see, Kedei La'atzor Es Hatipa Shehachla L'Radas, that had began to go downwards, Beberchus Sim Shalom. Now it wants to go down to that place, into that place of Sim Shalom. Ad Shehegir L'Dash Shel Zer Anpin. So you want to hold it back before it reaches the Das of Zer Anpin. That is the place of the das in the chest of Zeranpin. So now you say the vidui. You're the ad makom machaza. So let's understand exactly what he's saying. You're now about to say the vidui. Hashem. What is it? What the vidui? Hashem no, begadnu. That those midos there. So yarda ad makom machaza, it goes down to the place of the chest. That's what's happening when you're doing the vidui shel Zeranpin. So once again, it was at the throat, held back at the throat, and now you say the vidui. The vidui allows it to go down to its next stage, which is at the chest of Zeranpin, shuhu ma'avor yavok. And as a result of that, it's passing through the ma'avor, which is called yavok. So now it's sitting over here with these combinations of these two. That is that once again, the katnus is the concept of constricted consciousness, the consciousness of a child, say for example. So then we want to come over here and we want to add a 26 into it. That is the power of the mochin of godless. But now in this situation, we're holding it back at that place too. So they should not continue on going downward. So you said the vidui brought it to the chest area. That before it actually gets into action, and it's going to produce the yichud in between Zachav and Nuk that we're looking for, as or hamochim shal godless, we could take the light from these mochin of godless, she'ovrim ke'es b'ma'avar Yaavor, which is going through the neck, which is the place of Yabuk, and he says this happens, this holding back, because now we're going to start dividing up this tipa. So what are we going to do? So Rabbi Pirush, so he says, well, let me explain something. He says, Ana ma'akvim es a tipa, we are holding back this tipa, shenimshacham in a mocha elyon, which actually we said is coming from this mocha elyon, and it has this makif in it that we're talking about, so powerful. V'yagia, and it arrives or reaches lakan the Yesod shel ima. So it's come down, way down, and now it's in the Yesod of ima, which is in the das of Zeranpin. Shibachaza de Zeranpin, and it's at his chest level. V'anu ma'akvim osokan. So now it's held up here. So we have this concept of Yabuk. It moved through the Yabuk. It's carrying these two together, and they're growing. Shelo tered lamata, but we don't want it to go down now. So in other words, we want to keep it from going out of the walls of the Yesod of Ima, which is at the chest of Zer Anpin, Yaavor, which is ultimately going to be the place that it's going to pass out through that Yabok, and hold it back so you could divide it up before it goes out into the Gilui. So this is going to be the last one we're going to do here for today. And it says Ka'es. So now, Terem Tseis Hatipa B'Mechitzas Ima. So now it's still walled in by Ima's Yesod. Al Manas Lered Mechachazad Azal Malchus. So in other words, you're holding it back so that it keeping it from going, making this coupling between Za and Malchus. Anama Akvimo. So we hold that Tipa Osa, that Tipa Al Manas the Chalko the Gimachaloka, because we want to divide it into three. Kevin Shim Teitzim Imenu. Because something should come out from it. Kavar lo nuchul yosu lo otzro. Because once you open it up, its nature is that it wants to move fast. It wants to get to that yichud. It's a tremendous desire for that yichud. Kavar lo nuchul yosu lo otzro. You couldn't, once you open the barn door, forget about it. V'lachalko the gimachalokim, and you wouldn't have a chance to divide it into the three. Kevin shehi megula. The reason why is because once it's in the gilui, it's a whole different substance. Now, do we learn over here that it's the gilui? I don't know, because I get my shiur mixed up. But they're constantly talking about the same kind of ideas. Is that what it looks like inside of the of Ima is gematria sag, is 63. But what it looks like on the other side, when it gets into the Gilui, it's actually the Milui. Take away 26, the 26 and the Sag remain with Ima, and it divides, it only becomes a 37, which is the gematria of 63 minus 26. So Vehi Tered min Miyad Merutza Lamata, so it immediately runs quickly down below, believe Sheteschalak the Ein Ama Sheakva. So if you don't hold it here, once it gets into the place where it's now the milui only, you're not going to be able to bring it back. So as much as we can hold it back and keep it there, is because we still have intact walls of the Yesod of Ima, which hold it there. And then he has more to say about this, and we're going to see more to say about this. What happened here? My phone went dead.